Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wenke Podcast. And today, my guest is Harley Seelbinder. As many of you know him, he's a good friend of mine, and he's been on the podcast before. We talked about biohacking before, and today is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be pretty unstructured. This is kind of a last-minute thing before we leave on a trip, and we were like, you know what? We got a lot of random stuff going on. Let's just let's hit a bunch of different topics and kind of see where it goes. One of the fun things about a completely unscripted conversation is the adventure. Like you just don't know like where we're gonna end up. And this is just to kind of take it back for a second too. This was kind of the format that prompted our interest in the podcast world in the first place, because we would have like these long form conversations, and it was always fun because we just had no idea where they would go. So I don't know. It's almost like one of those. So here we are. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah, and through the remote, it's like it's not quite the same, but who knows? Maybe with time, we might have some plans in order to
who knows?
That. You never know. But yeah, happy
No,
to be
for
here.
sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, when we were talking, the slight amount of planning that we did, we talked a little bit about our current situation in university. And, well, we've been in university now for 4 years. We're going on our fourth year right now. And we'll both be fifth-year seniors. We both did switch majors, you from mechanical engineering, me from civil engineering, both to industrial and entrepreneurial engineering. So that partially explains the whole fifth-year thing. But they do kind of lie to you when they say that you can do it in 4 years. If your only responsibility is school and you don't fail any of the classes that have 50% fail rates, then, yeah, you can do it in 4 years. We
If your
didn't.
only responsibility is school.
Yeah, that's probably the key metric here. If you're capable of not having a job while in school, which is both impressive from a pure economic perspective, but it's also impressive from a sanity perspective. I don't know how you couldn't at least have some kind of job in school and it be your only responsibility being school. I feel like I would go crazy, but yeah, some people pull it off. So
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you get going on these days, Harley?
Well, what do I got going on? Let's see. Well, school, like I say to a lot of people, is my third priority. School is in some sense, well, I sometimes see it as like the way for people that are young to expand their time in which they can stay young and immature. But not everyone takes that route. But it's like what we're studying is like, it's useful in some sense, but it's also like we both have to conquer real world scenarios daily, whether it be clients calling, employees calling, scheduling for podcasts. And it's just like, when you're trying to analyze scenarios in school, and it's like this is all just for a grade, and it's all just scenarios that aren't happening in real life. When in reality, the phone's buzzing right now, and so it's like you were saying, there's a lot of people who don't live this kind of life that we live, but well, maybe we're just special in some sense, but. Nothing against people who just do school. It's just, I just don't think I could do it, Real life is like a video game. There's too many responsibilities and exciting things to conquer. School is just not one of those exciting video games, in my opinion. But what am I up to, I guess?
Yeah.
I help run a cleaning business, and I go to school. And then I started this pod. Now I do clips and produce for the Wenke Podcast. So you'll be seeing these clips. And
yeah, Harley's the mastermind behind the clips. So he does a pretty good job. Better than me, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's who knew that would be the path, It's like I just like you were saying, we'd have these conversations all the time just up in the kitchen, and we would say, "Man, if that was recorded, people would be impacted." Or, "Man, that was like I'd like to go back sometime to hear that," or, we'd say these things, and never did we act on it too much. And then I just kind of started this, and it made it like a little awkward because it's like, dang, there should be a time in which we can get back to that space where we're both in the same room, having these kind of combos that we always have. But, you know, like you said, for now, this is like the best that we have at the moment, and it works pretty great. And so this is all just like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and neither do you practically. And
it's a massive experiment. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, I made a whole episode at the beginning on like why I'm doing what I'm doing, but a lot of it was, you know, pretty rough scaffolding. It wasn't exactly like, here are my 10 reasons, and I know all of them are true and correct and will work out. Like that's very far from the truth. I have no idea what will happen here. Maybe we'll do this for another year or two and then we'll be done. Maybe it'll keep going. Maybe more than 10 people will care. Who knows? But I will say you have gotten specifically quite a few reactions from friends and people that you don't know that were fairly positive. Comments like, hey, like this really made me think. This really changed my perspective about the world, relationships, whatever issue it is. And I don't know, those kind of reactions really help make it worth it almost. Because there's also a lot of negative reactions. And this is something I wanted to talk about because we talk about this a bunch. But like the statistical analysis of the people that actually comment and respond.
Yes.
I mean, again, there aren't that many. You know, I'm not trying to say that there are that many people that listen over here. But the reality is that if you look at the data, 90 to 95% of people will watch the video. And most of them will have a fairly neutral reaction. It may be mildly positive, and it may be mildly negative. But there's going to be an outlying percentage of people that have a really positive reaction and have a really negative reaction. And of that percentage, there's an even smaller minority that are going to comment, and almost always all the comments are negative. And what's weird is it's not actually reflective of the general view of people, but it's basic psychology and biology that drives it. And this is interesting from an evolutionary biology perspective. We have been hardwired to care more about the potential snake in the grass than the potential apple in the grass. Because if we miss the snake in the grass, we die. If we miss the apple, it's not that big of a deal. So we've been genetically and evolutionarily hardwired to react more strongly and with a greater degree of intensity to potentially negative information than positive information. And you see this in the news too. It turns out that when you play the murder scene that happened 400 miles away from you, and you can see that on your TV in your house every night, people react more negatively and they tend to click and come back to it. And this is why so much of the media is just a corrupt, completely skewed perspective on actual reality, because it turns out that danger and tragedy, it sells better than positive news. And a lot of it just has to do with the way we're biologically wired. So I've noticed that some of the comments are impressively vitriolic, but they're not representative of the majority of people that watch the video. It's just one of those fascinating statistical human psychology-based experiments that we're running through right now in social media. And it's so weird because it's so foreign from an evolutionary perspective, completely uncharted, which is part of the reason we say this is uncharted. Like, we don't know what we're doing. Are you kidding me? What if you say that?
Yeah, it's like, you know, you'd just be surprised. It's like, you know, from my perspective, it's like I'm trying really hard to like put out content that I feel like is educational, and it seems like you are too. And it's like I put my heart and soul into like making a video that I feel like might help someone, and then someone's just scrolling through whatever they're scrolling on, and then they're like, you know, there's like you said, maybe 1,000 people scrolled and was like, yeah, not bad, not bad. And then there's one guy who's just having a horrible day, and he's like, negative comment, scroll, negative comment. You know, that's my guess. It's like they're just like on a rampage of like, I'm mad at life. I'm mad at whatever. And so it's like, but it, like, I was almost going to read this comment now.
No, do it.
So it's like, well, this one's not even that bad. It's on one of the longer videos of one that I just posted on how to quit porn in 31 days. But
Let's go.
yeah, and, this is not a bad comment, like, or vitriolic, as you would say. It's more like, there's nothing wrong with watching pornography. This is akin to an alcoholic telling everyone to not drink alcohol because they have an addiction issue. Moderation is key in life. Good luck. And it's like, that wasn't mean, but it's like, I don't know why I wanted to bring that up, but I was like, well, it's just when you do this, you're just getting so many different opinions. And then the question is like, do you disagree? Do you just let it stay silent? Do you agree? What do you do? And is it even a productive to do that? Comment back? But yeah, I was also going to mention like you're saying, like, this is kind of like a hot topic, but like people who watch the news and it seems like they are just, well, so motivated by fear and how like, oh, don't go there. It's like a dangerous spot. There's always someone dying, or, don't go outside because X amount of people are dying from COVID right now. Look at the counter. Can you see the counter? I can. And it's like,
It's at the bottom of CNN every day.
and it's like, when in history have humans had a counter for people that have died, or have had just like here's a giant spotlight on all of the horrible things that are occurring right now? And it's like,
Yeah.
I think I might just give people a pass because I don't think they understand the psychology the way you just explained it, of like, they're not maybe understanding that this negative news sells, and maybe that's why they're so gripped to it. And that's kind of why I'm biased towards podcasts, because it's long form and it's not just so, hopefully less clickbaity. The clips make it a little clickbaity, but hopefully not. But that's a long response that's kind of all over. But I just saw this comment and I wanted to bring it up. And
Yeah, I mean, well, this is always a question too. Like, what's the probability that the person commenting on the clip actually watched the hour-long, nuanced, complicated discussion? Because I've had this happen all the time where it's like, I just don't believe that you watched the whole thing. I just don't. I can't imagine. Because if you had, I don't know if you would be capable of uttering what you uttered in the comment section, like, without just feeling false. But then again, it's tricky to know. But yeah, it's weird. It's such a weird human thing that a minority of people will react in such a way. But, and like you said, the other thing is, like, what are you going to do? Respond in the comment section? Like, are you going to have a productive disagreement in a comment section? I don't think so. So it's one of those weird middle grounds of, like, how do you respond?
totally.
You would hope that the other person would go, like, actually listen to the hour-long discussion. I had this particularly bad with good old Padre when he came on to talk about religion and Christianity and Islam and whatnot. And
Talk about a deep, nuanced, complicated discussion that's deep and important, but keep going.
Yeah, it's like the topic of religion, like, it almost should be, like, designated strictly for books and just, week-long conferences. I'm serious, man. I mean, it's just so darn complicated. But you have to, it doesn't mean that you can't talk about it. And that's the thing. It's like the price you pay for talking about it is the fact that people are going to misconstrue it, and that you're not going to be able to, touch every single tiny nuanced part of what you want to get at. You're just not going to be able to due to time constraints. But the flip side is, of course, is the beauty of podcasts in that, in a lot of ways, the time constraint isn't as much of a factor. Because with cable news, and this is the beauty of this technological revolution that we're living through right now, with cable news, every minute is so expensive. So, of course, it's going to be scripted, because the people creating the news and the people creating the channels and the programs are paying thousands of dollars for every second and every minute that you're going to be talking. So they're going to be much more curated to ensure that they get their return essentially on their investment. But the beauty of podcasts is it's just not like that. It's so unscripted. And there's an adventurous element in that, kind of like I hinted at the beginning of the podcast. Like, you just don't know where it's going to go, and that's the beauty of a true conversation, is that kind of unknown. Like, well, who knows where this is going to go? So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of cool.
It is.
That's what drew me to it specifically. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I just think there's probably a lot of people, maybe people that went to our high school, maybe people that go to Western, some of our family members, etc., who are like, what are these guys doing?
Oh, yeah.
Why are they doing this? It makes no sense. And it's like they think that this is gonna become something that they can do full time, or like they might. There's always skepticism. I saw this interesting quote the other day that said, like, the majority of people don't recognize or are not striving for more. The majority of people are striving for the average in some sense. They're just, they don't have a 20-year game plan in order. They aren't constantly moving on how to improve their trajectory. And like, I forget exactly what this quote was. It was like of course, a little clip, but it was saying, like, if you are a person who feels isolated and alone, and you feel like, if people think you're crazy but you're still going, it's like you're in the 2% of people that actually have a dream, and then B, are going at the dream, and then C, are still going even after people are like, what the heck? And so it's like, It might seem like, sometimes it's like isolating as can be, because it's like, it's hard for people to relate. Like, if people ask, like, so how's the podcast? And I'm just kind of like, well, it's going good, but you wouldn't fully understand how it's going, because I don't know. It's just so strange, but I don't exactly know where I'm going, but I have this like optimistic side that you don't have as much, but I'm optimistic that, whatever we're pursuing right now could turn into something that we're going to be so thankful that we did. And like, it could truly turn into like businesses and networking, and who knows, we'll probably meet Peterson one day. I just have these like optimistic ideas of like, okay, there's like million people, let's say 5 million people that listen to Peterson. What percentage of those people are doing what we're doing right now, trying to build an audience, sharpen our skills, learn more about X, Y, and Z, connect with all these different people? It's like, it's such a low percentage. And it's like you were explaining the other night, there's not that many people that understand the idea of like consistency, and also the exponential curve of like, if you consistently improve, that's going to compound. And like, the amount of followers that you have, the amount of impact that you have, the ability that you have to articulate, all of these things are just going to compound with the continuation of this dream. And I think there's some people that will never understand why I or you are doing this, but I've kind of somewhat gotten past that and been like, well, that's okay. I'm doing it because I'm doing it for me mainly, but.
Nice. No, I like to hear you kind of go off on that one. No, you definitely are more optimistic than me, but that's good, because if we both were as pessimistic as me, it would not be fun. So, I'm messing around. But no, we've talked about this. You kind of help me be more optimistic, and I kind of help you be more realistic. So it's a great combination.
It is.
But I mean, the reality is that if you don't have dreams, then you're not going to go anywhere. So. And this is one thing that's interesting about goals, too, is like, people often won't even specify their goals, because the second that you specify your goal, you also specify the ways in which you fail, or in the ways in which you can fail to reach that goal. And if you just never specify it, then in some sense you never fail, because you never tried. But in a lot of senses, that's a worse kind of failure. and I kind of go to extreme examples because they help me think about these kind of things, but like when I'm on my deathbed, which will happen, by the way, assuming that it happens slowly where I'm actually on a bed, because who knows. But when I'm there, I have a feeling, and this is what I've been told by people, well, frankly, in the last stages of their lives, that I will regret not things that I did, but things that I didn't do. And I think I would be regretful and frankly disappointed if I had never tried something like this. If I'd never tried putting out my thoughts into the ether and seeing what happens. And I mean, I could be wrong, but I think one thing about you and I that may be why we're in a bit of a weird boat too is like, I don't really mind failure. I mean, it's not fun, but like I've accepted the risk of failure in doing this, that I could be literally spending hundreds of hours for the next year or 2 or 3 or who knows with no real, at least economic payoff. But the beautiful thing is I specified the ways in which I could succeed, and most of them have nothing to do with economics. They're all about personal development and character growth. And the people that I met, it's like I got to talk to a geneticist, Dr. Tyler Pansner, who, in my opinion and your opinion, is going to blow up. The man is a genius. He's got drive off the charts. I mean, who else gets to sit down with a geneticist for an hour and a half and have an interesting conversation? I mean, that's a pretty cool opportunity. So there's so many cool things that come out of this. And one other point I wanted to make too is like, and we've talked about this before, but like, people don't always know what to be afraid of. They misplace what they should be afraid of. Because you should be afraid of failure, certainly, but you should be more afraid of never trying. And that's kind of how I look at it. Because yeah, I'm scared to fail, but I'm more scared about the path that I would go down if I never tried. And that kind of helps me, because then I have something that I'm, in some sense, running away from. Like, okay, I don't want to go there. Well, then where should I go? And that's kind of like it's a good starting point to kind of go down the path of, okay, how exactly would I degenerate if I allowed myself to do so? Or what would happen if I never tried to, actually reach my goals? It kind of helps you, like, kickstart you in a sense. And you've had this too. It's one of those psychological things, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like, I agree. Well, I think, like, it's going to be ingrained in my mind forever. I had an episode with a guy, and he was like, never let the fear of failure outweigh the fear of regret. Or, like, you should let the fear of regret outweigh the fear of failure. Something along those lines, where it's like, failing is actually slightly optimistic. Like, I actually, like you were saying, I have a pretty good relationship with failure, where it's like, well, in order for me to learn, I have to make a mistake and fail. And it's actually, I have enough confidence in who I am and where I'm going that the failure is going to be okay. And it's just, honestly, it's actually optimistic. And it sounds so strange, where it's like, why would you be optimistic if you failed? But it's like, because I know that that's exactly the path of how life works. It's like, it's not about the destination. It's about the constant, like, try, fail, improve, up and up and up. And I am certain that I'm doing things with this podcast that are just like so dumb, or just I could be doing it so much better. But I'm totally excited for the days in which I have these like groundbreaking moments where it's like, man, I've been messing up, or I shouldn't have said that, or I could totally have done this better. And like, it's kind of, sometimes it's like, it's a little painful to admit that you made a mistake, or you're dumb, or you failed. But it's like, I think living with you, and also like listening to Peterson, like,
Poor guy.
No, yeah.
No, but keep going. Sorry, I had to chime in there. Listening to Peterson.
It's like, no longer is it like, oh, you're great the way you are and you're perfect and whatnot. It's more like you really just, you don't have that much to offer yet, but you can have a ton to offer. But the only way to do that is to try your absolute best, fail, learn. Try your absolute best, fail, learn, blah, blah, blah. Over and over. And like you said, hopefully towards the end of life, you can look back and be like, well, I tried my best. I learned from a lot of my mistakes. And now I have a lot of stories to tell. And hopefully I can help others along this journey too. And so I know how quick time is just going to zoom. I started this podcast, it felt like 2 weeks ago in some sense, or like, not long ago.
Yeah.
And it's already like, episode 64 and 5 I'm like producing, and it's like the weeks just zoom. And I'm like, we're just going to look back and hopefully be thankful that we did this. Of course, there's some cons, which we could maybe dive into some of the AI related cons of what could occur with podcasters and people that have a following, but who knows? But either way,
that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We can keep going on this topic too, but no, let's do that because that was one of the things we wanted to talk about. And this is crazy. So, this is just bonkers. So there's this little thing that came out about 2.5 months ago now, and it's called Chat GPT. And there's some things coming down the pipeline here that are just going to absolutely change everything. And they're coming fast, and we need to talk about them now. So I did a whole episode on this because I'm just fascinated by this. But let's talk a little bit about like its capabilities right now in terms of, well, how we've been experimenting with it in class, frankly, because...
Which is a whole nother...
Well, yeah, like, well, hold on. Let's quick go here because this is kind of funny.
This is great.
This is kind of funny. So, where to even start? So we go to university, right? And we pay... Oh, I don't even want to think about it. Probably like, what, $50 per class or something like that? It's probably close to $1 a minute. If we're being honest.
That seems pretty reasonable.
Oh, God.
Well, seems pretty unreasonable, but reasonable estimate.
In terms of an estimate. So we pay roughly $50 a class, something like that for an hour class period, right? And hypothetically, we're learning from a expert on the subject.
Hypothetically.
And hypothetically, we're learning relevant, valuable information. Let's go with those two assumptions. That situation as a thing no longer exists. And what I mean by that is since the internet, and specifically YouTube, you can go learn about anything from the most competent, most wise, most articulate professor, teacher, whomever that you could possibly imagine for free. We in this class, just to use an example, have been learning about something called the theory of the simplex method and the simplex method in general. This is the algorithm behind linear programming models. Now, the only reason this algorithm was designed is because it is capable of solving large-scale linear programming models with a large number of variables. But it was designed not to be done by hand, but was designed with the fact and the speed and the processing power of computers in mind. And what this means is that it's incredibly inefficient to solve by hand. We have other methods to solve linear programming models by hand that take way less time. And yet, we've spent the better part of a month and a half now learning about this algorithm. And even a simple problem could take you 30, 40 minutes to solve by hand. And the chances of you making a simple algebraic error are like 90%, considering we witnessed maybe 20 to 25 of them in our class alone by the hypothetical expert on the very subject. So you can type in this linear programming problem into, well, for instance, Chat GPT, and it will solve it in 1 second. Or you can type in the most difficult version of a linear programming problem into a software designed to actually solve them, and it will solve it in 2 seconds. So you may ask the question, why are we learning the algorithm by hand? And that's a good question. It's a really good question, one of which we've been asking ourselves this entire time. Now, the argument goes that you need to have a foundational knowledge about the subject in order to accurately implement it in the real world so that you don't make stupid errors because you don't actually understand the concept behind it at all. And part of me gets that. Part of me understands. There's a logic there that if you have no idea about the concept and theory behind it and you only know how to use the tool, you will reliably misinterpret results and misinterpret what's going on because of your inability to understand the concepts behind it. So there is a middle ground here. But what we've encountered, especially with this thing with ChatGPT, is the ease at which you can come to concise, consistent, reliable answers that make sense from sources that are completely free. And this is only going to get more prevalent. So, what do you do with that $50 a class period current way that colleges work? I mean, all you have to do is look at college debt statistics, and you know that this just isn't sustainable. I mean, the cost of college has just skyrocketed.
And the value has not.
No, and it hasn't. In fact, you can make a pretty good argument that the value has gone down. So, what do you do with that? Well, the reality is it's a unsustainable model. Now, what's it going to get replaced with? Now, that's interesting. I don't fully know where that's going to go. But the whole ChatGPT thing is just one iteration of what's coming down the pipeline here. Sorry, that was quite the long rant. But, like, I don't know. What's been your biggest takeaway from that class in ChatGPT?
Well, that class, it's more just like, well, I just have like predictions of like, soon enough, the old people that think college is the absolute pinnacle of that's what brings you to success, those people will not live on this earth too much longer. Young people like us are going to realize that there might be other models. I have no idea what's going to happen, but
Yeah.
Either way, like, huge takeaway from ChatGPT would be it's like, it reminds me of the internet, but like more concise, personalized, and it's honestly somewhat addicting. But it's like, I just want to read this real quick.
Go,
as you were
go.
typing, I said, because like you said this, and I typed exactly what you said. I said, what things are coming down the pipeline in the AI dimension that we need to talk about? And it said, there are several things coming down the pipeline in the AI dimension that we need to talk about. Here are some of them. Ethics and responsible AI. As AI becomes more powerful and persuasive, there's a growing need for ethical guidelines and responsible practices. We need to ensure that AI is developed and deployed in a way that is transparent, fair, and accountable. And this includes issues like bias, privacy, security. That's just one. It's just like, I don't fully know what else, but I was going to bring it over here, but it's like, I just feel like, well, sometimes, like, you made an interesting point the other day, and you were like, okay, this AI model has billions of text data, and they know all of the literature when it comes to, like, human psychology. Why in the world would you ever go to a human counselor when you could, especially when the AI is advanced enough to seem human, why wouldn't you just go to the AI for advice? They know more data than any counselor could ever read. They understand the human brain more than any human could ever understand. It's like, I just feel like people don't understand. It's like the rate at which it can go through information and then output information is just unlike any human. And I talked with a professor, like, so what do you think of ChatGPT? And he's like, well, it's just Grammarly, but it's like the next Grammarly, you know? And I was just like, could Grammarly write you a paper that would give you an A that is indistinguishable from my language? You know, I don't know what the takeaway is. The takeaway is that we have no idea what's coming down the pipeline. That's kind of the big takeaway.
Yeah, that's the takeaway. I mean, there's like 20 different things that you can talk about. I did an hour on it in an episode, and I mean, I barely of the subtopics that I did in the episode, you could probably do a whole episode on each of them easily. So I mean, it's just gonna absolutely blow our socks off, frankly, what's coming. The point about the counselor is kind of interesting because right now, certainly AI is not good enough to reliably and indistinguishably generate video that we can not notice as AI generated. So this brings us into deepfakes, and I've talked about this before, but just a real quick summary: a deepfake is an AI generated video or audio piece of data that is indistinguishable from reality, let's say. So you could type into an AI, make a video of Harley saying X, Y, and Z, and it would do it. And by me just watching that video, I wouldn't be able to tell that wasn't actually you. And this is going to happen. And then what's going to also happen is then we won't be able to distinguish between them without the use of another AI to tell us whether or not that actual piece of video is authentic or just generated. So, I mean, that has like a million implications that we don't even know what to do with. And it's going to just radically change everything, frankly. Now, there are ways of mitigating it and whatnot, but it's going to get really tricky really fast. I mean, that's just one of the things.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you would want to go into. Oh, this is something I wanted to bring up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know where I'm going.
Maybe.
Okay, so... Oh, gosh, this scares the living shit out of me. The other day, I got an ad on Instagram, which unfortunately I'm on more nowadays because of the podcast and just posting and commenting and whatnot, which I actually don't think has been good for my mental health. Just to make a note of that. But I think it's worth it. Anyway, I was on Instagram, and an ad popped up. And what was interesting is I had been talking about this like 2 days earlier, and then sure enough, it popped right up, which happens terrifyingly often, by the way. And this ad was for a AI-generated girlfriend. And I saw this, and it scared the shit out of me. Because this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. So, right now, there is you could say, epidemic of loneliness and singleness and a lack of sex in specifically Western cultures and the U.S. Here's an interesting statistic that our boy Chris Williamson brought up the other day. Highly recommend his stuff. He's a genius. 15% of men report having no close friendships in 2022, and that's a 5-fold increase from 1990. In 2022, Pew Research found that 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. And only half of single men are actively seeking a relationship. And this is down from 61% in 2019. So there's just a couple big ones that we can just chuck out there. And there's a number of different reasons why that's happening. But back to the AI girlfriend. So let's imagine that you have a greater and greater percentage of men specifically, and women, that aren't in a relationship. And then let's imagine that they're lonely, they're more depressed, which is all true, and they've never really been in a significant relationship, or they have been, and it didn't go well. And they stumble across this ad, and what they can do is they can go onto this platform, and they can curate their perfect girlfriend. They can create the most beautiful person they've ever seen with exactly the features and characteristics that they want, And this person is going to know everything about them. It's going to have access to all of the psychological literature. It's going to have access to all of their data, who they are as a person, what they post about, because all of this is online. Basically, people born today, their entire life will be online, assuming that their parents allow it to be. And this AI is going to have all of this data and be able to conversate and interact with this person in the most, let's say, manipulative and perfect way. It's going to be able to run through, you're going to send it a response, and it's going to be able to run through 10,000 simulations of what it should say and rank order the probability of a positive reaction from you in a millisecond. How can real life women or men compete with something like that? And then what's going to happen is you're going to be able to conversate with this AI girlfriend, which there will be a video version, not just a chat version, because there will be a video version that, again, is a deep fake, meaning it's so realistic that you can't tell the difference. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be a paid feature that lets you talk to the AI naked. And we think porn is bad. I mean, this is just going to absolutely wreck romantic relationships. There's already a gigantic percentage of men that have basically given up on relationships. I mean, over 90% of men actively watch porn. I mean, this is just going to be porn on steroids to a large degree, because there's something about porn that, like, you're removed emotionally and relationally from what's going on, but you inject an AI version of this into this sphere, and suddenly that removal that you had is no longer there to a large extent. And what's even crazier is, like, for some people, this might be the closest, most meaningful relationship they've ever had. Especially when that AI can know exactly what to say to ensure the probability of that is at its highest. So, anyway, I saw this the other day, and it scared the shit out of me. And I don't know what we're going to do about it. And a lot of people say, like, okay, there's no way an AI can, replace human-to-human relationships and contact. And I basically agree with that. But considering the number of people that also, or that already aren't even pursuing relationships with other people, I mean, this is going to continue to capture a greater and greater share of, let's say, the market of disaffected young people that aren't pursuing relationships. So, what do you think about that, Harley?
Yeah. And then you're going to get the version that's, only a few years away. That's the VR where, you might even just have a doll / human-sized thing that when you have the VR thing on, it seems like it's the girlfriend, and then you can actually have sex with it. I bet that will happen someday. Like,
for
why
sure.
wouldn't it? It's
10
like
years max.
you don't have to. You can have all the sex you want anytime you want. No fighting ever. No arguments. She's never mad at you for not doing the dishes. Blah blah blah. You can have. It's like the fantasy is now becoming more and more real. Why would I ever go out into the real world, try and fail and get rejected and whatnot, if I can just enjoy this simulation that seems so real, feels so real, and that's terrifying to me. The other hand is like, it could never replace what humans can have, but like you said, it can get somewhat close. And maybe I'm just naive in thinking that it could never replace, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it can, technically. But again, given the number of people that already have, to a certain extent, just kind of given up on the whole relationship thing, I mean, you only have to get burned once or twice, man. Like, it doesn't take much. I mean, especially us cynical fuckers. You don't have to get burned that much, and you start to, you start to question the utility of things, and I can see the psychology is kind of what I'm getting at. I can see the psychology there, and so many people already spend every waking minute of free time on social media. I mean, it's kind of fun to chat with this Chat GPT. It's only going to get better. It has all your data. This is another interesting point about the fact that it has all your data. This came up in the film by Tristan Harris, The Social Dilemma. Yeah, everyone should go watch that, like, right now, by the way.
Twice.
Like, right now. You can also do it after smoking a joint. That'll make it even more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Or on acid.
Yeah, well, that might be a bit far, but, whatever. You can give that a whirl. But, yeah, so if you go watch this, one point that Tristan brought up, he was also on Joe Rogan a couple times. Highly recommend that as well. He brought up the point that, like, social media will be able to know if you're gay or not before you do. So this, I heard this from him, and this was just like, what the heck? Because the algorithms are so advanced that they can basically predict that by, how you interact online, that you're gay, and you might not even realize it. And that was a couple of years ago. So this is just another interesting point about the fact that the algorithms know more about you than you do. So you hook up all that data to, the ultimate psychological oracle in an AI form. And I mean, humans can't win. We just can't win on that. So, I mean, we're talking a lot about the negatives. I mean, there's a million positives too, but these were just some of the things we were talking about a while ago, and I don't know what we're going to do with them.
Yeah. I wonder if that whole predicting you're gay might be an incorrect prediction, but because the AI or because social media says it, you might have a temperament that leans more towards, gay-like characteristics. And then the AI is like, ding, 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 you're gay. That's why you're depressed. Maybe you should switch. Who knows? There could be probably some incorrect predictions made, and that could maybe mess people up even more. But
yeah, if the algorithm's constantly trying to figure out what you're interested in, it could end up leading you down a rabbit hole of things that you wouldn't have otherwise gone down.
Ever.
But it's trying to predict it, so it's going to lead you down that rabbit hole. And we've encountered this all the time, where if you, click on something on your Explore page or whatever, it notes that, especially if it's something that you don't normally click on, and it'll start popping those videos up into your feed. I mean, it analyzes everything. Your eye movement, how long you click on it, whether you look at it but don't click on it. I mean, I'm sure people have all experienced this phenomenon where, like, you're talking about something or listening to something with another person, and your phone's off, it's in your pocket, and then a day or two later, reliably, some ad, some post, something comes up on your phone that had to do with that conversation you had 2 days ago. And you're like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, what do I do with this? And that scares the crap out of me. So, yeah, I don't know. Any other AI thoughts while we're on it?
Other
Yeah, go.
So, let's think. I'm going to use, your dad as an example where he encouraged people on your episode to, like, are you struggling with finding meaning or purpose or answers in your life? Why don't you try looking for answers in the Bible? And I think that's a pretty reasonable place to look, and probably one of the better places to look. I will admit, where have I been going to find my answers in life? It has been, the past few years, it's been Google. Google's been kind of the answer bearer for me. But now these days, if I have a question about homework, if I have a question about, honestly, my life, I asked it a question just the other day about like I gave it a long prompt of like my scenario of like, you know, I have a girlfriend. She might move 2 hours north. I have a best friend with a podcast where I kind of want to create a podcast. I have a business in KZoo. Where should I live? Where should I go? What should I do? And I was like, why did I go to the AI for this answer? And it's like, instead of going to like praying to God or looking into the Bible, I went to this AI out of pure curiosity. But I was like, what kind of answer will this give? But it's like this, you know, like some people, even myself, are like, man, I pray to God. And sometimes, but most likely not. Normally, I don't hear an answer. You might feel an answer. Or maybe there's an intuition that comes later because you were thinking about it. But like people, like I feel like young people, like something like AI could be even like another reason why it's like, why would I pray to God who doesn't answer me when I could go to this AI that knows everything, that's the oracle of truth when it comes to pretty much everything that you can get responses with every minute, any minute, all the time. And it's like, whew, what does this do to our version of like where to look for answers in the world? It's just insane to me.
Yeah. What are the implications of that one? Ugh. I don't even know. I mean, you brought up the whole prayer thing, which is just a multi-hour long, 20 books ready to go conversation in and of itself, because I don't even know what to do with that question.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. I don't know. Yeah, where do you go to find your answers? Yeah, what happens when... Well, here's the thing is, I mean, Chat GPT's read the Bible. Like, it knows
and
it.
all the commentaries on the Bible.
It has
probably.
It all. Like, why go to your pastor where you could just ask Chat GPT a, theological question, Not really. I mean, even from a practical standpoint, to a large extent, it might even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Go ask something that has access to all of the data and can incorporate it in a succinct manner. It's like,
can elaborate and can expand at your request.
Yeah, you can have a conversation with it. It remembers conversations. It's like Google on steroids. So it's only going to get more advanced, too. So, yeah, it's tricky. Oh, it's tricky. I mean, the religious dimension with AI is just... I don't even know what to do with it. The thing is like... Oh, the religious dimension is more concerned with, like, how you should live, not, like, what you know, necessarily. And, like... But, like... If you go to... This is a very undeveloped thought, but... If you have a choice to go to, like... a church to get your how I should live knowledge, or an AI, it's not clear to me that, like... You won't go to the AI first to kind of see what it has to say. Like, part of me, just out of pure curiosity, too. Like, what does this say about this issue? So, I don't know. I don't even know if I want to go down that rabbit hole right now. I might have to think about that more. But
yeah, that's fine.
Well. Oh, man. Let's see. The destruction of the university system. The introduction of AI at scale.
The introduction of virtual porn, virtual reality porn that can talk to you back.
Yep. Your AI girlfriend, which already exists, apparently. I didn't check it out, to be honest. I don't even know if I want to. Oh, God. I don't know. What else do you want to talk about?
Yeah. I was just say, like, if you haven't tried out ChatGPT,
Here you go.
Seriously, you should just go. Maybe I'm just, I don't know. I find it so fascinating and interesting, and I can't even explain why I'm so interested in it because it's like got me.
It's got you hooked.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, but I don't know if that's great advice, but it's more just like, well, there's always going to be the next new thing, and there's probably older people that are like, yeah, it's the next new thing. Podcasts are new. I don't really listen to podcasts, or AI, it's so new. I don't really deal with that, but it's like, man, I feel like, well, how about we maybe finish it off or talk about like the exponential curve of technological revolution that so many people might not even recognize. Like about the iPhone. Like just last night we were having a combo similar to this of like the iPhone came out in 2007 or 8 or something like that, which is like 25 years ago. Wait,
no,
15 years ago or
12 to 15.
Yeah, either way.
15. Gosh,
15.
we can do math.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we're smart.
And so it's like imagine, but it's like those 15 years are at a different slope than the next 15 years are going to be at. And the next 15 years after that are going to be at a different slope. The slope is constantly changing and improving. And our slope that we can even understand isn't improving at that rate. Like we have almost a linear slope at which we can grow and understand and process info and whatnot. And this is just exponentially getting bigger and bigger. And I have no idea. Like we were talking about future, and it's like it's almost so hard to predict the future and where we're going to be because it's like it's so hard to really know what this new technology is going to mean for our world and what life is really going to look like. But I have no idea.
Yeah, we just don't know. We still know. The thing about exponential curves too is I was looking at a graph of like world GDP over the past 3 centuries. And basically how the graph goes is it's just a flat line from like 1800 to 1900. And then it slowly starts to go up. And then it's just this almost vertical line from like, depending on what region of the world you're in, 1980 to now-ish. And we can't even seem to wrap our heads around how good we have it right now, economically speaking. You only have to make about $30,000 to be in the top 1% of people in the world right now. It's not clear. I read an interesting commentary by humanprogress.org. Highly recommend them, by the way. If you want some positive news, go look at them. Very useful. And they had a commentary on whether or not you would rather be the richest man in 1910, like Rockefeller type person, or a poor person in the U.S. today. And they did a great analysis on this, and I don't know how you could come away with a different conclusion other than you would rather be the poor person in the U.S. today than the richest man in the world 100 years ago. So that just gives you an idea of just how insane this past century has been in terms of technological and economical development. And barring some catastrophe, barring nuclear war, barring, some large-scale military conflict, this is going to continue. Human progress is going to continue, and which is good. I'm not saying that's bad, but what I am saying is that the rate at which it's going to continue is completely foreign to us biologically speaking and even evolutionarily speaking, which goes back to one of the points that we made earlier about why bad news is more engaging than good news, because we've been wired this way biologically, and the rate at which we're going technologically is exponentially faster than our biology can even hope to keep up with. You chuck in genetic engineering, and we have things coming down the pipeline that we can't even imagine. So for the good and for the bad. So we'll see. And
Yes,
maybe 2 humans can keep trying to talk about it, get to some answers.
Try to keep up.
We got nothing better to do. So, all right, you want to end it there with our random episode on random things. It's kind of fun.
Human psychology, AI girlfriends, and
AI girlfriends.
I was trying to think of a Lex Friedman like title of like, he has like X comma Y comma Z,
Yeah.
But I was just like, what was it? But
That's
no.
a good question.
Oh man.
All right.
AI
Thanks for
girlfriends.
coming
All
on,
right,
buddy.
Yeah. No problem.
Appreciate
man.
it. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Kind of fun.
We should
We'll
do more of these. Yeah, definitely.